friends, it's Sharon from Mad Paper Crush. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing this little review of a 32 color acrylic paint set sent to me from Chalkola or Chalkola. I'm not sure exactly how it's pronounced, but I thought I would do this little review starting with the basics, meaning let's open this sucker up and take a look at what's inside, and then maybe we'll even make a little project. So as I just open it now, just trying to get the plastic off here. Let's see what kind of colors they have. There's a lot of different colors in here. Looks like 2 whites, several yellows, reds, some brown, peach, purples, blues, greens, all kinds of stuff. Payne's gray and Mars black. Nice. Looks like a wide variety of colors. So let's get going and open this up and see what's inside. All right. Take off the lid here, and I love that Chalkola includes little tool sets for you. So even in the gouache set that was also sent to me from Chalkola, they included tools to go along with your paints. So it's not just the colors themselves. You get some, in this case, you get some artist brushes. So there's a nice variety of different size brushes that could be used. Let me just go ahead and open this up while we're here. If I can get my finger on this. I don't know if it says how many. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 brushes. And it's got a variety of different sizes and even shapes. So some round, some flat, this big fan one. So lots to choose from. So that's pretty nice. I like that. And then it also has this little palette in it as well. And I believe this is very similar, if not the same one that was in my gouache set. So I do like this as well, to have a place to mix your paints if you want to. I don't always use these. Sometimes I use canvas paper or palette paper to do that, but it's nice to have this, especially if maybe you want to add water or something like that to it as well. All right, let's see what else we have in this set. So it looks like all of our colors here are maybe in 2 layers, which I believe it is. So I'm just going to pull this out because there's some other stuff in here. Looks like there's a foam sponge for me that's folded up right now, but that's okay. And a palette knife. This was also included in my gouache set. I love having a palette knife to be able to spread paint if you so choose to do that. So that's pretty nice. And I believe it is the same one in the gouache set. So this is the one that I got in my gouache set, and this is the one that I got for the acrylics here. And okay, looks like that's my set of tools there. And then I have all of these colors. And what did we say? It's 32 colors. And I believe I'm going to just take these out. All of the colors are on the back, which we kind of looked at before. So I think what I'll do is I will probably start by making a nice swatch set of everything first, so we can see, you know, what the colors are actually going to look like, see if maybe they match up to what is on the bottle, you know, so that you kind of know what you're working with. So let's start with that. Right, I was getting ready to do a swatch real quick and realized that this set doesn't have a swatch paper. So the other one that I got did, and so I just went ahead and made one. So I took just some mixed media paper and you know, made some blocks here. And since there's 32 colors, I kind of did a block for 30. And then since there's 2 titanium whites, I just, you know, did one little square over here, since I'm hoping it'll look, you know, pretty white there. So that's kind of what this is what I'm going to use for my swatching as I go through it. And I've also decided that I'm probably just going to kind of do it like this. So I'm going to start, actually, I may start, I don't know how I'm going to do this because I don't, you know, want my left hand to get in the way of everything. So, so if I start maybe from the right side, and actually maybe what I'll do is I'll just put a little dab on each one of these going across in the row. Oop, and I better make sure I'm doing it in the right one. I almost put this one in the scarlet. So I'm going to do them all, and then I'll actually spread them out. So I'm going to put this is lemon yellow. I'll put it in the lemon yellow square that I created, and I'm just going to do a little bit in each one. Ooh, that one had a little bubble in it. Gold. Ooh, that's pretty. Shimmery. Naples yellow. That one seemed like it had a little bubble in it as well. So this is basically what I'm going to do. And once I do this row, I'll speed everything up so you don't have to watch me do all this. But I think the tubes inside of the trays here are in the order that they were on the back here. So that's kind of how I set this up. So I do still need to double check and make sure I'm putting the right color in the right square, but hopefully I will do okay. So then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, I'm going to grab a little wipe here. So I just have a little baby wipe that I can wipe off my palette knife after I finish, you know, just kind of spreading these around. So I'm just gonna, this is a small square to do this in, but let me see if I can kind of get something done here. There we go. So there's my titanium white, and I'm just going to make sure I'm not mixing them right now. So scarlet red. Once again, I'm just trying to get an idea of what the color is going to be for each one. And I'm just going to try and make sure I dry that off. Indian yellow. That's a really rich yellow. It's pretty. It's almost orange. I like that. Naples yellow. This one kind of looks fleshy. And let's see what that gold looks like spread out. So I'm not using brushes, obviously, but at least this will give me an idea of what each of the colors is going to look like when I start to use them, you know, on projects and things. Ooh, that yellow ochre is really pretty too. I always loved kind of mustardy colors. The lemon yellow is pretty as well. I did get a little down here, but that's okay. Wait, actually I can probably, if I fold this one upon itself. Oops. Messed up my black a little. I thought I was using a permanent marker, but I guess not. So I'm just going to continue this way, marking each one, you know, with my color swatching here, so that in the end I'll have a nice swatch to refer back to if I need to. All right, now I'm just gonna set this aside to dry. The colors wet look absolutely gorgeous, and I would say, let's see, mauve pale. Let's find this one. They're pretty close to what the tubes say, or at least I didn't notice any huge differences. That one's a little bit darker than the ultramarine violet that it says. But let's see, what's this one? Violet, just violet. There's that one. Oh, here. So yeah, they're pretty close. They're pretty close. So, but it's always good to have a swatch of the actual paint so that you know what you're actually getting into. So let's let that dry, and then we'll see if we can do a little project with some of these colors. All right, my swatch card is all dry, and I think these colors look just as good dry as they did wet. They're very rich, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So they came off, you know, pretty thick, and they have a lot of coverage. So just from a swatch perspective, I think they look great. So let's see. I thought I would try to make some backgrounds with using these paints on with my jelly plate here. So I just have some deli sheets of paper, and I have some stencils that I thought I would use. I don't know, I pulled out a whole bunch. I don't know how many of these I will actually use, but I just pulled out a bunch to see maybe what I could come up with. And like I just have a lot of even just things that I've kind of cut out myself. So this was cut on my silhouette. I was cutting something out of there. Same with that one. Same with this one. And so these are from the Dollar Tree, I think. So there's just a bunch of different things in here. I'm not sure, you know, what exactly will strike my fancy as we go, but I'm going to probably be using some of them. I pulled out a bunch of the colors. I didn't pull them all out, but who knows? Once I get going, I may end up pulling them all out to see what we do. And then I just have this old book block here that I can use to wipe off my brayers if I want to do that, and possibly to use as some, you know, wipe off or clean off sheets here. So, all right, let's go ahead. I'm going to just go ahead and do this, and then I'll do a little voiceover to kind of let you know what I'm doing, since I think that'll be easier than me trying to talk as we're doing it. All right, so I'm just going to give you the basics of what I'm doing. So I added some yellows and some whites here. I thought I would just start with a base coat. I took off some of the paint using some bubble wrap and some of my foam stamps there. And then before I went on, I decided to take a little bit of paint and, using my brayer, roll it onto some of the foam stamps and stamp it back onto the plate there. So that's kind of what I'm doing right there. I'm letting that dry so that I can add a couple more things onto it without smearing everything around. So I'm adding some more bubble wrap now. And then after that dries, I'm going to use this little raw sienna to cover everything up and then pull the print. So when I did this one, it didn't have as much contrast as I was hoping that it would. And it also wasn't pulling off great. I'm not sure exactly what was happening on the edges, but some of the colors seemed kind of muted, and it wasn't as contrasted as I hoped it would be. So I'm going to just keep going here. So I'm adding two different kinds of blues as my starter this time. And I just decide to pull a print with just the blues on there. And this is when I realized that maybe I should try some different paint, because the deli paper didn't seem to be pulling off all of the paint. So I just used one of those book pages and pulled that off, and that seemed to do much better. And so now I'm taking some yellows with some gold, and I decide to use a stencil this time. And I went back in with my foam stamps and just added or pulled off some of the paint that was in between there, and then pulled this off onto that blue sort of ghost print that I had done. And now, because it looked like I had some more paint left over on there that was kind of sticking to the plate so you could see those circles, I didn't want to waste them, so I figured I would try to pull some of them up as well. And why not add a stencil in doing that? So I just pulled that up, and it did pull the stencil, but it really didn't pull too much of the circle. So I'm not sure exactly what was going on there, that it wasn't pulling off. So I'm going to try to pull the whole thing again using some book page and see if it pulls it off. And that time it did pull most of it off, but not all of it off. So I did just kind of move on after that. So now I'm adding some, I believe that was a mauve color and white, and a little bit of the yellow. I think that was the ochre, yellow ochre. And I thought that made a nice mottled look. And so I just pulled a plain print right from there. And because there was a lot of paint left over, I went ahead and pulled a second one with the deli paper there. And I like that all of the color came up on there pretty well. And so I figured I would try to add something dark to those. So I put down some blue and some phthalo gray. No, is that right? Phthalo gray maybe? And then once again started pulling some paint off using my bubble wrap and some foam stamps there. And then I went back to that original print, pulled that off, and then pulled the ghost print again. And I got 2 great prints from that. And deciding that I kind of like the way the prints were working better on the book pages, I decided to continue with that. So now I wanted to try some of the darker colors, the raw umber and burnt sienna and some copper there. And once again, I'm just going to pull a base print that's just plain with all the mottled colors, and I love the way that one turned out. But there was still paint left on the plate, so I pulled again another one like the ghost print, and that pretty much pulled up the rest of it. And so now I wanted to once again add something contrasting on top of those browns. So I added the Naples yellow and some white. And then put this little teardrop stencil that I had made just using my silhouette and some cardstock, and pulled that off onto the brown, and I love the way that looked. But I have a beautiful print left over here, so I was going to try and see if I could do something with that. So I dried it up, made sure it was real dry, and then added, I believe that's the sap green. Might be the Viridian green. And then I pulled off some of it to try to make sure it was as thin as possible. And then just went in with a deli paper that didn't have too much on it and tried to pull that off. And it did okay pulling it off. It didn't pull it off as clean as I wanted to, but it still did a nice job, and I got a great print from that. All right, so now I'm trying to decide how I want to use this stencil, and I decided that I wanted to try to layer just some of the letters on top of one of the prints. So I put the stencil down on the plate with no paint, and then just tried to brayer on top of the stencil to get the paint into the openings of the stencil. And then I pulled it off and pulled a print just from that, and it did exactly that. It was kind of nice the way it pulled the print, you know, just the white was showing in the places of the stencil. So I thought that was really cool. Now here's where I realized that you need to not leave a wet stencil on book page, otherwise it will stick to it. So I went real quick to wash that off, and then I came back and was going to see if I could pull this ghost print to get up some more of that lettering underneath this red and gold. And it pulled most of the red, but it didn't pull the lettering real well. It did a little bit, but it wasn't a great print. All right, so deciding that I wanted to get more of those reds and stuff because I liked the way they looked. And I went ahead and added a stencil to this one, and then I printed over top of the one of the brown prints that I had pulled, and I like the way that one looked too. And then I figured I would go ahead and pull the ghost print here, and like that teardrop one, this one actually had some great outlines on it, which you'll see at the end when I show you all the completed prints. And moving right along, now that I'm looking at that blue one, I decided that I wanted to do something contrasting with that. And so I think I'm going to grab my small circles this time, which was also just one that I had done with my silhouette, and then I added some stripes with my foam stamps. I tried to pull off some of those stripes to see if they would show, and they did, but it wasn't real contrasty, which is fine. I like the way the golden yellow looks against that blue there. And I'm going for this red again. We're going to try and pull this red again. And I think I did this one on just a plain piece of paper. I don't think I had started anything on this one yet. And it did pull it up, but for whatever reason, those circles didn't show too well on the red. All right, so up next, we're going to do some white. Since my layers are getting pretty thick, I thought it would be good to do some white on top of some of them, trying to keep some of it masked. So you can see here, I'm really trying to press in between the stencil to make sure that I'm getting that paint off, and I love the way that print pulled. And as you can see, I have a great ghost print on the plate here, but these never seem to want to pull as well as I want them to for some reason. And when I put this piece of paper down, which we had already done some layering, it really just covered up the whole pattern. So I was upset that happened, but that's the way it goes sometimes. So now I'm just cleaning off the plate to kind of give myself a fresh start here. All right, back to some pinks and some mauve there. I thought that might be fun on top of the red piece that I had pulled. And so I'm just, trying to decide what to do here. So I started with a stencil at the top, but since it didn't cover everything, I just used one of my foam stamps to kind of pull off some of the paint at the bottom in the hopes that I would get, some different texture down there, which I did. And so I was happy with that, but it wasn't a huge contrast. I pulled the rest of that onto another one of the prints, and it was really starting to look a little mottled, but back for the white. I'm using my foam stamp again to create some texture in there. And I decided to put a stencil on top because I didn't want my entire piece to be covered. So that worked out pretty good. And then once again, I'm going to try to pull that ghost print using a blue paint here. Sometimes it takes a couple tries to push it down and pull it back off. And that one pulled off pretty good, and I liked that you could see the circles and the numbers on that one. So now I was just trying to get some more of the paint off, but that wasn't working, so I just cleaned it up and started over. And this time I used the copper and the Payne's Gray, I believe that was. And once again, 2 stencils since it didn't cover completely to see what I could get off of there. And I did this one on top of another one, and I love the way that one turned out. And I'm just drying off the ghost print again, or the ghost plate, I guess, so I can try to get a print again from it. And I'm just going to go in over top of that with some of the lemon yellow. And we'll see how that pulls off. Okay, so we got our hands dirty a little bit, and I'll show you what I came up with. And I really, I do like these paints. I think they work pretty good with the jelly plate. Some of the prints I wasn't crazy about, but that wasn't the paints, I don't think. That was more, what I was layering on top and things like that. I was surprised. I grabbed a couple of different pieces of paper, as you might have seen, because I didn't feel like this deli paper was really soaking up the color. And so I was hoping more would be coming off of the plate. So I wasn't sure if that was the paper or just how wet the paint was or something like that. So once again, probably user error. But I ended up with some things that I really loved. So this one, I didn't end up adding another layer to, and I certainly could. It was lost in the pile there and I never did. But I do like the way this one turned out, and I think this one was more of this was an initial print with the stencil still down on the paper, if that makes sense. So I like the way that one turned out. It's just very plain. So some of these other ones I really liked. So this one I started out and I kind of liked it. And then I did something on top that covered up too much of the original layers that I liked. So I was like, well, you know, you just keep going when that happens. So I added another layer with a couple of stencils, and I really liked the way that one turned out. So that's one of my favorites right there. And this is also one of my favorites. So I ended up this was a second pull because this was, I don't know, one of these deli ones that I had pulled first, and there was still so much paint left on the plate that I was like, well, I better, you know, do another one. And so I just started layering on this one, and I do love the way this one turned out as well. It has lots of neat layers, and I like the gold paint and how that really shimmers through. So that's definitely a good thing for the plate there. And then this was when I was working with that butterfly stencil, and I like the way this one turned out. Like, I like how the darker edges came out because when I first, you know, pressed it into the stencil, I think it caught some of the ridges, and I really like the way that turned out. And then this one was the first one I tried with the capital letter stencil that I had, and I like the way this turned out, but I don't know if you noticed, but you got to be careful if you have when I tried to pull the ghost print, I used a separate piece of paper and I left it on the stencil and it started to dry. So I did have to go quick wash that off so that the paper wasn't sticking to my stencil. But I do like the way this one turned out. I think this would make fun collage fodder there. And this one, I love the colors on this one. This was like, I think I used the raw umber and maybe the raw sienna or the burnt sienna and some of the copper in there. And then I went over it with, I think it was maybe the Naples yellow and white on top. I'm not sure exactly what I did on top, but I love this coloring, and I think that stencil looks really cool. I think that'll be another really fun collage thing to do. And then here's another one I did with the butterfly stencil. The bottom layers were kind of neat, but nothing really popped on there. So I was trying to, you know, get some more color in the original layers, and it just didn't turn out the way I wanted to. But adding these butterflies on top really adds some interest there, and you can kind of get a hint of some of the things going on in the background. So I think that one's fun too. And here's another one with that, I guess it's kind of a teardrop looking stencil that I have. And I ended up just trying to do, I think this was I'm not sure if this was the ghost pull on this. I don't know. I can't keep track anymore. You just keep pulling when you're doing the jelly plate. You rub and you pull, and that's how you do it. But I do like the way this one turned out. Once again, you can see these outlines because of the stencil, I believe. So those stencils, the butterfly stencil and this stencil, let's see if I can find that other butterfly one, that have the really dark edges. I actually cut these out of cardboard, you know, like cardstock, not cardboard, cardstock on my silhouette. So they're not real thin stencil material. It's a little bit thicker, and I'm wondering if that's maybe why these edges are a little bit darker. But either way, I think it looks cool. This one was another fun one I did. I really had fun with the foam stamps that I had made, pulling some of the paint back off of those or printing it through the stencil. I really think that turned out cool on a lot of these. I really like the way using those foam stamps worked. And then here is, this was the ghost print that I did from the one that I really liked. Where's that one? Oh, this one. So after I pulled up the stencil, I did a ghost print on here. And while I'm not as crazy about the colors or anything, I still think it's pretty, still think it's pretty neat, and it'll still be cool to tear it up and use it in collage, I believe. And then this was the ghost print I did for that alphabet one that I had done. I don't know where I put that one either. Maybe that was over here. Yeah. So after I had done this, I tried to do the ghost print, and it really just didn't pull at all. And the print that I had done underneath was just kind of bland. And so that's why I thought maybe adding something on top of it would look nice, but it really didn't, you know, do what I wanted it to do. But as you can see, I really got some cool backgrounds here just using, you can see all the different variety I got as well, just using the paints from this paint kit. And like I said, I'm very happy with how the paints did, and I think that they'll be a lot of fun to play with in the future. So thank you so much for watching, friends. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope if you haven't tried to pull some jelly print backgrounds that you will. If you would, or if you're interested in this paint set, which I think would be a great gift set as well, I will put the link down below to their site so that you can check that out. Thanks so much for watching, friends. Have a great day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.